Yo, what's going on everybody, and welcome to another video. Now in today's video, I am bringing you a very different video where I'm actually going in to a Discord call and I'm going to be talking about some data with the data analyst from Respawn. He actually does work at Respawn and he's given us a bunch of different images that I can show you guys that are really quite interesting that I think you guys are going to really enjoy. Of course, there is a boundary of stuff that I could ask. I know in yesterday's video I asked you guys to give me some questions, and in this video you're gonna see me ask him those questions, and he starts to back away a little bit because there is a line where he can't give out that certain information, but he actually ended up giving us a decent amount of really interesting information that I think you guys are really gonna find awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you do, please be sure to slap that like button. As always, it does help me get into those recommended. I'm going to be putting Emre's Twitter down below if you want to go ahead and follow him for any future data that he's going to be uploading on his Twitter. Feel free to go check him out. He's a super good guy. And there's not much to say. Enjoy the video. Let me know down in the comments if you would like to see a part 2. I know he brings up towards the end that if this video does good and you guys want to see more information like this, we can bring it and deliver it in a better way. This is the first time I'm doing a video like this, so I hope you guys do enjoy it. If you are new to the channel, I would appreciate if you would consider subscribing, turning on those post notifications so that you never miss an upload. And one last thing before I go, I want to announce that I did release my fall winter drop 2020 merch. It just released on the 16th. I'm going to be showing you a scroll through of what you guys get if you do want to show that extra support. Today's sponsor is Kobi, so if you would like to go show some support, copping some merch would be the best way to show it. We have a bunch of awesome designs on here. I even posted the story and the concept to these designs on my Twitter. It's a huge tweet and it really does go into depth of why I have this dark merch concepts on some of these pieces. I like to implement the merch in my life from past and current events. So like I said, I'm going to show you guys a bunch of examples before the video starts. I really do hope that you guys check out the merch, at least go and look at it. We got face masks, hoodies, tees, long sleeves, crew necks, everything. And this merch drop means the world to me. I think this is my favorite drop I've ever done. And if you did miss the last drop, there are items on there available, very limited though, because it was the overstock. So enough rambling from me. I really do appreciate you guys for checking out today's video. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and I will see you guys later. Peace out, everybody. There we go. Yo, I'm digging the mohawk.
I can see myself on the thing. So
I am digging the mohawk. Who you got in the background dude. Watching? Who you watching? Some Cold War.
No. Oh, that's nice wig.
Wig, my boy.
Yeah.
There was this video in the RuneScape community where I came from. One of the YouTubers made a video where he reached out to the data analyst for RuneScape and made a video talking about just some of the private, or not private, but information that has not been out to the public that's really interesting. Like any random facts and stuff like that. So I don't know if I don't know the limits of what you can say under obviously contract, but any analytics that we can get into in the session would be extremely dope. In today's video I asked to have people give me some comments of what to ask, and we can kind of go from there.
Cool.
And I don't know.
Do you what do you think in how do you want to use my input? Would it be clipping it into a video?
Yeah.
Which
so
I'm fine with commenting on stuff. It's I've already kind of put together some stuff that I can share.
Okay.
And definitely stuff that nobody has seen. So
that will be awesome for sure.
Have you ever? Do you know how many rows are in Excel?
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten to the bottom of Excel?
Yes.
Okay, so so it's finite, right? It doesn't go forever.
Yep.
I know maybe that's not maybe that's definitely obvious to me. I back in the day I would be oh, I mean it's essentially endless to us. However, a game like Apex will generate it current as of a couple of months ago when I had last pulled this, there were almost 2 trillion rows of data. 2 trillion that come out of the game, right? So that grows by like terabytes a day. And the purpose of me mentioning this is that it would take you opening up 500,000 copies of Excel on your computer for you to capture just 1% of the Apex telemetry.
Holy crap!
So imagine like like it's basically something you can't eyeball, right? So
yes.
I know.
And you mentioning skill-based matchmaking, that's something that's really heavily frowned upon, but people got to realize that I feel like not enough people.
What do you think about it?
I understand it, and I feel like not enough people do understand it. So if you put this in as to an example, these people that tweet a lot or they'll post on YouTube comments or Reddit or whatever saying, hey, like, I'm, level 43, my teammate's level 20, and we're running into Apex Predators. I think the issue with skill-based matchmaking, or there's not an issue with skill-based matchmaking. I understand why it's implemented into the game, because if you take it into consideration like this, you're brand new to the game. Your friend told you about Apex Legends. You just try it out. You're level 1. You don't know how the mechanics work. You don't know how much work. Like, you don't know about the game mechanics itself. And people,
of which there are many, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like a pretty complicated game.
Yep. And people expect to just get in these quote unquote bot lobbies 24/7, where it's these new players that are learning the game for the first time. People are mad that they're not going against those players. Yeah, it would be like me, Nicewig, and dhaltoosh all in a trio, and just.
I mean, let me ask you this: would that be fun for you to like dunk on noobs, like brand new players, like just demolish somebody who's just like literally lands and like hasn't played the game, right? Like that's
right. That's not.
It's not rewarding even from the good side, right?
Yep.
You could see how it would suck if it happened to you, and if you're doing it, it's also not that like fun.
Right. Some people do find enjoyment in it, but as a lot of content creators, we have in the past, I know multiple of us have made Smurfs to test out the theory of skill-based matchmaking.
Now, let me ask you this: what if you had a matchmaking slider that you get to pick as a player?
Now that would be awesome.
One of my like silly ideas that I was like thinking through. I was like, you know what? If you get to pick your difficulty, I was playing Doom and getting owned and just setting my thing easier and easier. Like I started off thinking I was like still good at games, then I learned and went backwards. But imagine you're about to queue up into a game and you're like the game gives you your like kind of where it's going to put you by default, and then you can then say more chill or more sweat.
Yep. I think that's
and like you get to kind of fine tune where you go.
That's a really
what do you think?
No, that's a really cool idea. Now, of course, there would be issues where
choose your own adventure kind of
thing. Yeah. Of course,
there'd be how you're feeling.
Yeah, there'd be issues where people who are sweaty, going for the not technically sweaty, but the kill grinders, okay? Because there's a community of kill grinders.
Yep.
They would probably end up abusing that and setting the slider all the way to the lowest, where they would end up ruining the fun. Yep. But if there was a way
to detect that and bump them out of like if you win too hard when you do that, you would be restricted from being allowed to be sliding into like there's definitely ways where it can be abused, and but because like as a like I'm like not a game designer, that is the kind of cool problem that game designers work on. So I know that for me, like one of the things I continuously learn is basically all the different things you got to think about to make a video game.
Yep.
The fact that a game even can work and like live and like exist is to me kind of rad. And like it's then on top of that, a game that's actually fun to play. That's like so much like to me like a miracle.
Right.
For real.
That definitely is a really interesting thing. I've never even put that into perspective, but that would be really cool. Dude, because
let marinate on it. Think about it.
No, because absolutely, because like I said, there's nights where I want to have a few drinks and stream and talk to chat. So you're already multitasking, and then you have to worry about sweating. You could turn that slider down, not all the way, but maybe if you have 6 or 7, 8 drinks, turn it down all the way. Yeah,
they don't want to see you go all the way down to like full novice.
Exactly. Maybe right in the middle where.
Yeah.
And you that way, because There's times where I've streamed for 3 hours, and I'm not kidding you. I don't know if it's RNG. I don't know if you guys hate my RNG, but I will go 3 hours of just not winning a single game and just getting absolutely destroyed. And then there's days where I'll have a 3-hour session where I'll just dominate. My shots are super clean. And again, that all just depends on how I'm feeling that day. But a slider like that would definitely be really cool, because you say I want to stream and I want to be sweaty that day. I can leave it
at, it's at your discretion. Like, it's at up to the player, right? Like, now you kind of have a say in the experience that's coming out the other end. I can tell like your total distance, and I know what mode of travel you were doing at all times. So for any type of like getting around, there's a like it comes through in my telemetry.
Okay, so like crouch, prone, and running.
So, or like wall running, like, you know, flying through the air, falling, all that stuff is like contributes to your total distance traveled, and it's sliced by like how you're doing that traveling, right? Okay. So like sliding, all that stuff, right? So this gives a pretty robust view. You before, like without Revenant in here, our legends are pretty much the same in terms of how they how often in the game they're moving. You know, the no crouch walk penalty for Revenant manifests itself in this data, so you can actually see if you didn't know anything about the legend and you saw this metric, you would say that you now know something like interesting, like or you say like, oh, there's something. Why would this be? Like, you would expect if every legend is kind of flat that they're down there, right? So this is the kind of stuff where we don't need to put like numbers on it, like or like gross numbers. Instead, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, is the thing that we intended to do, the design, can we validate whether or not that's happening, right? So this is kind of one of the purposes of having a data team that is on the dev team, is to be able to say, all right, if we make that passive related to crouching and walking and like no penalty.
Okay, put this into your perspective. Think about like this. Now, Rev is a legend that new players are not allowed to unlock unless they have legend coins, correct? Revenant is also, I can definitely say,
or money, right?
Yeah, Revenant is also not one of the top played legends up until his recent buff. So I want you to put into perspective how big that number could be if Rev was truly one of the top played legends. I mean, we're talking 15%. We're talking triple of what it could be. Because as someone that, I'm not gonna lie, I was super excited for Rev. When he came out, I was very
as was I, and I continue to be. Yeah,
I was very underwhelmed with his playstyle. It didn't really match my playstyle, and I think the statistics that you can pull from Apex Tracker can prove that not many people do play Rev up until I believe the Tokyo players found out the meta where you could Rev alt with a Wraith Portal and a Crypto EMP. And that is when Rev was starting to get implemented a little bit more into these competitive, even in LGS, you started seeing some Revenants. But in public matches, you don't see too many Revs. So I want you to think about how much higher that scale would be if he was one of those meta legends such as Wraith and Path from the start, you know, because at the beginning people played him and people left him. Like I said, you can go on Apex Tracker and look the people with the highest kills, and then you know the person with the number one kills.
Where does Apex Tracker get numbers from? Out of curiosity, I know that they do it in a whole bunch of ways.
So they pull their data.
And, like, those sites are totally like I love going to like the different tracker sites. They're I'm always interested. However, we actually have the truth numbers, so
data.
I have the actual Apex trackers built into the game. So however, at the same time, I'm just like we're kind of just shooting the. So like I'm totally fine with like assuming like the Apex tracker numbers are right. What would be like the implication of that, right? So I wasn't here for the launch of the game, but I am able to look at what happened when the game launched. And it's actually possible to find somebody's first game of Apex. And I did this for like one of like a bunch of our guys like in the studio. So here's one that I had shared already publicly. That we had already talked. So this is one of our environment art team guys. So one of the artists on the team. This is his, like they worked on this game for years. This was his very first game, right? Of Apex. So I made these visuals where using the data we have, I can actually recreate as close as possible the general route that you took through a game, right? So I can see your kill count, your placement. If you zoom in on that little red box,
Yep.
You can kind of get a sense of the like imagine like a long string of like event after event, and they're all in chronological order, right? So like
Yep.
this happened, this happened, this happened. Some of them happen almost on top of each other, but actually the way that game events have to work is they can never happen at the exact same time. So there's a chronology. I can look at all of this, basically this long list of things that happened in the game, isolate it to my boy Joby here, and basically kind of give him a memory from the first game of like from first time experience. Like, wouldn't that be really cool? Like, I don't know, like if you can kind of like imagine how that might be, but like the launch of this game was so huge and so kind of outside of maybe what any reasonable expectation would be, that it's totally possible that you are totally blanking on like the first couple of games you played with the game out in the real world. So this is something that we can do, where like we can drill down to a player and figure out exactly how your game went. So I've seen stuff like this that people have drawn for like competitive matches, but
Yep.
This is one of the first iterations. This is a long time. I did this like a year, feels like a million years ago now. That's one thing, but I think something slightly cooler. Well, I think these are very cool, but
yeah. I want to say a few quick things about this image real quick.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting because my first game looked something similar to this. And do you think that, I mean, we all know Skulltown is the best place to ever be on Apex Legends. And you see he lands in Market. He goes and loots the side buildings before Skulltown, and then goes over to River Center and dies. But my rotation for my first ever game was Skulltown, and then I went up on the bones with the triple take because I was a Call of Duty sniper, and I was using the triple take, and I was shooting at the Thunderdome, and I'm like, and I was like, why is a sniper hitting for 24 damage? It is a sniper, and I was so upset because like I thought it was like a longbow or a Kraber or something. But yeah, I find this is quite interesting. Do you think that this has an impact as to why Skulltown is and will always be the most favorite location on Apex Legends? Do you think that everybody's first game a potential?
I can tell you that it's so that's just an example of not enough sample size.
Right.
That's we have a pretty good idea where people land. Don't get me wrong, it's a hot spot, right? But when you look at kind of the overall, it is like the map is really well used. In fact, it kind of has to be for people to like if you're trying to like game theory out like what you should be doing. There are some benefit to landing with enemies, and there's other potential advantages to intentionally not landing Skulltown, right? So because of like players that make that decision, you do see a splitting. Like basically there's a self selection that goes on where if everybody in the plane drops skull, like that probably isn't going to happen, right? People toward the end are going to be like, you know what, I don't want to, that's good, that's a disaster to jump there. But that didn't happen when we had like a race town takeover and that portal joint that sucked everybody in. That was just game after game of just the entire
I remember it like it was yesterday,
funneling into it.
The Voidwalker skin just came out. About 30 people would land in the portal, and it was the caustics that were succeeding. It was the race that could phase out, and the pass that could grapple past the caustic traps. It was I still remember it like it was yesterday. In the first video that dropped, my reaction was jaw dropped to that. So that's why I brought this up. It's pretty interesting because I feel like Skulltown is one of those areas that were just, when I first played my first game, that was the most appealing looking area on the map, regardless of who landed there. It was just so unique.
It's cool.
And such a appealing thing for your
It
eyes.
kind of feels like Mad Maxy. Like it feels like there's a yeah, you can get into this like
Yeah.
fight. It's open, like it's maybe like a little bit more forgiving. There's a lot of, I mean, our level design guys are based like they're geniuses, so they're good at this stuff. But check this out. So this is the last thing I'll share. Basically, I need an excuse, right? So
Right.
anyway,
No,
but check
absolutely.
this out.
Okay, I'm looking at the GIF
The thing I
right now.
dropped in here. So this is these
This
are
this is gonna be
the
season
where
3, correct?
this is yes. So this is a sample of winning duos squads and where they went. So each color is a different match
Right.
altogether.
Okay.
And so this is an example of how you can use spatial data. So that's basically not just what's going on, but where it's going on.
Okay.
That kind of data is very, very useful. But when you just plot everything onto a map, it just becomes noise. Like you can imagine, like there's so many players that there's no story you can really pull out of that. But if you look at something like this, and I just imagine like maybe you'll make like, if you want to like include like a clip of it in like a
Oh
video
yeah,
or
this is
whatever,
going
go
in.
ahead. But the idea here is like you can tell are players able to win games utilizing like different travel distances and different landing locations, and
Mm-hmm.
like is it viable to like, is every part of the map viable, right? So like that's like a goal, right? You don't want there to be areas that are basically never landed in ever, because like there's like a neighborhood that's just so much better right next door, right? Like that's the same thing that would happen if you had a legend that was not uh, balanced. So you would have
Right.
somebody that can be either OP, that they're going to be picked all the time, or obviously a lesser version of an existing legend. If you did that, then there would be no like just no reason in any kind of world where any player would pick that if they had that knowledge. So you really want to avoid that happening, especially because like the map is like the first thing, like it's like where the game is happening, right?
Yes.
So you really want to get it right, and we use stuff like this. So these are these squads, they each, so we don't want to just plot where people landed and where they went in general. I don't want to know where the 17th place squad went. I mean, I maybe will eventually, but at the moment we don't have that many people that can like be thinking about this. So let's start with the winners. Where do winners go?
Mm-hmm.
Do winning teams have any kind of pattern that we see? And the there are patterns, which is like they are willing to travel, right? Like they are not necessarily like, there are teams that stay within like from the beginning of the game to the end, like they're like overall kind of, as the bird flies, distance maybe a little bit overall shorter than some other teams. Some teams are a little bit more nomadic,
Right.
and they like to roam a bit more. So we can look at something like this. We can also kind of do things like slice the things like win rates based on where you land. So we can, if you land Skulltown very frequently, I can tell you like what the expected outcome of that happening it usually is, right? So you can kind of draw imagine like you take a map, which is just basically a XY coordinate plane, and because of that, you can basically say, okay, here's Skulltown is like negative 69, 420, whatever, right?
Yep.
And then like anything that lands within like a radius of that, we're going to count as Skulltown. When that happens, start monitoring all those players, like start like logging what happens to Skulltown landers. And so what we can do is basically run a like do an observation and say, okay, if you land Skulltown, your odds of getting like the most kills in the game are the highest.
Mm-hmm.
Your odds of dying before you get to 15th place are also the highest.
Right.
So it's a high risk, high reward, and we can actually put numbers around. So the thing I'm showing you here, this little GIF, is I would say probably like very rarely seen, almost maybe never before seen kind of look into some of the cool stuff that we can do with the data. And this is, again, these are old prototypes of like the stuff that we try to find whether or not it's useful. Because some of the first maps I was doing, basically it just said everybody landed everywhere. because I there wasn't a good way to limit what you're looking at, right? So
Right.
then I was like, okay, let me just look at where I landed as a player. So I like find myself in the data, which is very only possible because we like I've memorized my own identifier because I've seen it so many times. Everything is anonymized, so you don't no data is ever you can't connect it to any given player. All you can look at is like a whole match of players, a whole like group of kind of anonymized player groups. What you know about them is how like their what they did in the game, right? So only from their actions can you really try to infer why they did something. Sometimes I see people that have like an insane number of kills or reses in a game, and I think it's my data that's broken, but really it would be something like that's one way you can like detect like abuse in the game, like different kinds of like people being sketchy is like if you find that their numbers are way out of the ordinary in some particular thing because they're trying to get a badge, for example. I saw that a lot. There's a bunch of teaming, and when you see that, for me, I was like felt like very protective of the integrity of these. I was like, all these other numbers, they make sense, but this 34 reses a game doesn't make any sense to me. Like yeah, you're making me like do a whole bunch of extra work like with that like exploit that like I'm seeing or whatever it is. So
on this graph, really quick, would you mind representing what these colors are meaning? Are they
they're different. They're different winning squats. So each one represents a different. These are a bunch of matches that are layered on top of each other.
Okay.
So each color is
a win.
So each dot is a. You can pretend like the dots are connected by a line.
Yep.
We don't have your where you are in the game doesn't come through as a line. It comes through as a series of points.
Okay.
So what I'm doing here is taking just the kind of doing a time lapse of the winning duos matches sampled in some period of time and to just put on the map. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at what kind of route did the winning teams take in real time, like and then not only that, but I don't want you to have like only one game's worth of a route to look at. Like, I mean, great. Like, okay, in this case, this is how they kind of got around the map. But what if I could look at 100,000 winning squads?
Yep.
And then now I kind of can say, like, if you land like in like, like bunker, you are have like an 80% chance of leaving it in this cardinal direction. So basically think of every hot spot on the map, like a kind of key area of the map,
yep.
With a like a dial on top of it, and that dial can kind of based on where we see the trajectories of players entering and leaving that area, we can tell where they came from, and you can do it in the important thing is you don't have to do it on a individual player basis. You can do it in aggregate, so you can kind of crunch together a whole bunch of player like directions that they're going. So
Yep.
it turns out like, okay, this is the most common like way out, and if that is like if that was not what we thought was going to happen, well, it's important for the team to know that that is happening, so that any kind of like consequences of that are kind of nipped in the bud, right? So that's the kind of stuff. So each color here is a different match entirely, and that match is winning team and where they went. So what we're doing here is kind of smashing together, like, I don't know, this might be like 10 or 20 like full matches worth of data.
Correct.
If you start putting more than that together, you have to start showing it in a different way. And you might imagine it's hard to keep your brain like making sense of all those different colors. This is already kind of too much anyway, but I think this was kind of when I wanted to show people I knew how to make GIFs.
Yep.
So this was probably a little bit of that too.
No, this is definitely a good representation. You can see on Dark Gray team landing Sorting Factory, going over to loot like almost where old drill used to be, and then make their way up through a cave and then back or through the tunnel over by thermal, and then they go back down noticing nobody's there, and then they end up finishing the game out in thermal. So this is definitely a really good representation of like routes that people take. You can also see other colors like pink that land outside of Capital City, and make their way in and end up ending the game out in geysers. So this is
Right.
definitely a really good gift because you get to see.
So that's where you get to see stuff that you hope you would see, right? Kind of
Yeah.
like a couple. But what if you saw like somebody who won the game and that their route was like they took the circumference of the island, all the way around? Like that would be, you'd be like, what is this?
That's me right there. That's me. You give me a gold helmet on Pathfinder in season 3, I'm hitting refinery, and you're gonna see me go all the way to Dome, make my way to Thermal, Skyhook, and I'll probably end the game in Cap City.
Right. So you just take like a full extreme tour of the entire like land.
Oh yeah.
Like if we saw like, okay, it turns out like the way you win the game is by remaining just like on your feet and moving around.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that this sort of analysis can expose. But if you are not in but that's not what we see. In fact, like depending on what you're doing, you can find players that are very good at winning without moving too much. And I know that was initially like some of like the strategies we saw with like Watson fences, where like you can really fortify an area. That gives you another viable way of playing the game, and that kind of adds option complexity. And each one of these avenues takes a lot of time to really figure out. So that's kind of the reason why you end up with a very wide and different kinds of skill collection in the game itself. Like it's not as coherent or as uniform as in maybe other disciplines. So that is, again, kind of going back, like just touching for just a sec on that matchmaking convo. That's like kind of another thing you can look at this. So you can also, these are good players and what routes they took. I can look at this from I wouldn't say bad players, but maybe less successful players.
Right.
Where do they land? Like, and why do we see, like, is it the case that maybe they're trying to do what these guys are doing, but they're just like, maybe they don't have any, like they're bad at shooting, right? Or maybe they have very bad, inefficient looting. And I'll add one other thing that I want to throw, maybe your audience can think about it as like an interesting kind of problem, right? So think about this. How would you know why somebody swapped a weapon or why they picked a weapon that they did in Apex? So a really important question is, how popular are these guns? I know how popular they are by how much you use them, but I'm not sure how popular they are if you had every option all the time. Right. So every game you're actually shown or exposed to a random kind of buffet of weaponry, and of those limited number of items, you're making certain decisions that is really hard to add together with a totally different game that happened, maybe exact same, everything else the same, but everything, like all the options to you were swapped around. How do you kind of know, okay, like Kobi's preference is like R99s, and I know this because in every single case when he had any other weapon and he found one, he picked it up, he swapped to it, right?
That's accurate. You actually took that from the data.
Okay, so that's something that I just threw out there as probably the case, right? That one's relatively easy, but when you get down to other weapons, how preferable they are is really hard to figure out. I'll give you one last example, and then I think I'm gonna roll.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the Mozambique, right? Kind of a bit of a
interesting weapon.
April
Fool's Day was very fun.
April Fool's Day, dude. When I saw our weapon designer Bocek, when he put that up on our board as like a thing that we were gonna do, I saw it and I went to go talk to him. Like, I thought it was a joke idea, but it's so funny. Doing my best to this is a hard thing to, like, a hard topic to share stuff about, like data stuff is very sensitive.
Yep.
And so it's just, in order for it to even happen at all, we really have to be careful and trusted from the studio. And like, luckily, like, we're in that place. So this is a last thing I'll show you here, Kobi, is this, what pings we see based on how many. So squads remaining is a great way of pacing the matches. So you can go by like how many minutes have gone by, but it's also kind of important to know how many squads are left, because sometimes they are not exactly this, like at 10 minutes, it's not always the same number of squads, right?
Yep.
You know how the different games go. So I broke this down by squads remaining. From the left side is when all the squads are there. Right side is when all the squads are gone. And the lines represent different kinds of pings and their relative frequency over that time. So right at the start, you see the lilGhOuL at the top, right? So this should kind of, the more you look at this, the more of a, oh, that's funny. Like I see what's going on here. So this is the ping usage by game phase. So based on where you are in the game. And the reason I mentioned this is the Mozambique is actually OP in the end of the game. So if you have less, like 3 squads left, the Moz comes up like actually a little bit way better than you would expect in those close quarters.
Yep.
It kind of makes it finds its little niche there. And again, as a Revenant lover, I love the underdog. Like, it's cool to know that there's this like kind of OP special utility of the weapon, which you might already expect, but when you blend it with everything else, it disappears. So you have to kind of look for it individually. Here, you can also understand like this is also like being like, we look at this stuff, right? So we want to make sure like the communication tools are being like they're used and like people find value in them, and like you can see that there are some pings that are way more popular than others, right? There's some that are very situation specific, or if you're maybe just trying to like troll your buddies,
yep,
you use. And then they're the ones that you use when you're trying to communicate. And really, it looks like there's like basically like 4 or 5 pings. If you kind of master those, you basically got the vocab you need to play these games, right? So
right.
This is a cool thing. It basically kind of tells us like you can have like a very complex and like deep ping usage if you want to, but you can also very much get by with kind of picking your communications carefully and sticking with what you know, right? So
Right.
important stuff. Where's their loot? Where are their enemies? Where are we going? Revive me, like stuff like that.
Yep.
These are the key functions, and we can see it how they change based on over the squad. And I think one suggestion I would make for you is not necessarily to try to like explain what these charts like directly mean or what we use them for. These are charts that I built for almost 100. Every one of these were built based off of an initiative of like, hey, we see this happening, so let's make it. So you can think of it as like extra credit. I would say like one of the fun things is to try to come up with your own why as to this going on. So I like, if you wanted to throw your ideas in, like, when I'm not trying to direct anything that you're doing, but just a suggestion might be like leave it up to your ask your viewers like to comment on what they can infer from something like this or from some of this information, or
Yep.
if they had one other bit of info, what else you could know, right? So imagine this, like you have the chance to know one bit of information in the middle of a match. What would be the most useful thing for you to like increase your win rate or your placements? Like if you could know anything about the current game that you're playing, right?
Right.
Like imagine you have like a God view for a second, and like where enemies are, what the loadouts are. Like these are it's a hypothetical thing, but the reason we think about it is would it be possible to predict how any given game is going based on kind of the state of the game at that very moment? So like right now, I know like when I'm there and I've got this look, it's a hard thing to do, but I would say it's I would hope like your audience, like people who watch like your videos, are gonna find a like they can enjoy the challenge of trying to come up with a what the hell is going on here, you know?
Yep.
And don't get me wrong, I don't know what's going on in every case, but I've looked at a lot of these, and usually I can get kind of close, but a lot of times I'm freaking baffled. I just see the results, and then I go to my team. I'm like, yo, let's figure out what's going on here together, because I can't do it myself. And I'm sure that I have not heard all the interpretations of some of this stuff, so I'll be stoked to see like what your like comments and stuff say. So.
Absolutely. I just have to throw this out real quick.
Yeah.
And from this graph, it makes me laugh. You want to know why? Because off the 20 squad still alive, the we go and the enemy, obviously we go pinging where you want to land. And enemy general is spamming that is where you want to land. Is that correct? Do you think that's correct? Because I'm not gonna lie, when I play and I'm solo squatting, I will ping and then I'll spam ping enemy to let them know, hey, I'm landing here. Is this why? Does this graph show that? I'm assuming that's what it is.
That is certainly one of the contributors for something like this. So that's that's hilarious. I'm glad that this like resonates with you, right? Like when you see it, it kind of is a weird way of showing a game experience that you've had in a chart form, right? So that tells us like, hey, this is weird how often this ping is being used when everyone is flying in the sky. How could that be? Like why is that happening? And turns out like that the exact kind of habit, like spamming habit that you mentioned, if you look at how closely it tracks with We Go, there might be something to it, right? So that would be a fantastic like next step of an investigation. Like if you're doing some research on what's going on here, hey, here's how pings are being used. I just took a bird's eye view. Give me some thoughts. Like, is there anything valuable here? Would there be anything here that would help us make decisions about like, you know, the ping system in the future or whatever, right? So, if you knew that, you know, the like a ping that we think is going to be used for this is just kind of coming in as like a ping used for spamming when you're landing, that's interesting to know. It's not like, doesn't mean we're going to change anything, but you can actually, like I said, if you look at this, you'll see like there's more than meets the eye right there. So nothing I'm not allowed to show is being shown. So like, although it's a little bit uncommon for like a dev like me to kind of like talk about this stuff, I think it's a you know, your pitch was like made a lot of sense, and it's actually part of my role is communicating and doing our best to like deliver insights not just to the studio but to the players too. So yeah, I like that you tried to ask like the questions I couldn't give, but I just hope that that's a clear example of me being like, hey, there's a line, you know, like for me,
no,
you know,
I fully respect that.
Like yeah.
I respect that. I didn't know the line going in, so you know, I get these questions asked like all these.
Totally understand. I would ask those exact questions as well. Like,
that's just what I was given, and you know, it just like, you know, I just didn't know the line.
Worth a try. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
I respect the attempt. Like, feel free to, like, if you have a question about something, just ask me. I hope, like, I'm like just going off of like good faith that like this is like going to be a net positive, right? Like a benefit to players.
Absolutely.
I think they'll find it interesting. Hopefully you find it interesting, right? And if it's like something that players dig, like you know, maybe we can like see how we can improve and get better at doing stuff like this, like moving along. So
absolutely,
this was fun, dude. That's for me is like a treat, you know, to be honest. Like picking your brain from my perspective is like a lot of times, you know, we would love that like feedback, you know, to know like, you know, I wonder what like an insanely good player thinks. So awesome stuff, man. This was fun. Let me know how this goes and shoot me like the video when it's done. Like,
of course,
I'd love to see it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
awesome, dude.
Enjoy your ride in your car. Thank you so much for all the information tonight, man.
Yeah. Use it well. You know,
absolutely.
You. Like,
it's gonna be great.
Hopefully, it'll be cool. So awesome. I'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah, sounds good. You as well, man.